ask yourself, what can we go and bring to the table and say, take this instead? Right? Trade. They're trading with the Germans and the French right now. Right? There is nothing. There is nothing. Without the credible threat of force, all of these discussions, all of these negotiations are not going to achieve their aim. That, I believe, is the important lesson that Thucydides and actually the history of most of humanity for the last 3,000 years would want to communicate to our present administration. I believe now we are to leave some time for questions from the audience. Is this correct?
Could you please come right to the microphone for this listening?
Good morning. My question relates to a unilateral approach versus a more collective or collaborative effort. I'm trying to develop an understanding of the Obama presidency, and you've given me some opportunity, and I'm wondering if you can give a reference or an example from antiquity that would show if a unilateral approach harbors or results in great animosity, is there any example from the ancients that a more collective or collaborative effort actually fosters greater security?
Well, remember the first Persian invasion in 490 was really unilateral. The only people there pretty much were the Athenians at Marathon. The Spartans were waiting for the moon or waiting for the religious festival. You know, the Spartans always have a reason not to leave Sparta, and they didn't make it in time. I'm not sure that created enmity among the other states, probably more just like relief that they didn't have to participate in turning the Spartans back. You do have an example of multilateralism being effective, and that is the Greek city-states that did band together 10 years later to form a coalition to stop the Persians. But remember, I forget the exact number, but I think it was probably not even half of the city-states actually participated. The others, for whatever reason, just didn't see it as in their interest. Now that, ironically enough, that multilateral approach, right, at Salamis, and then at Plataea a year later, in which the Persians are turned back, does end up creating enmity because the Athenians, since they bore the brunt of the attack and their city was burned and they took the lead in the sea battle and it was their ships pretty much that turned the tide, they began to exploit that to create their empire, and then that created the enmity. You see what I mean? I think in the ancient world, most people are realists and assume that states are going to pursue their interests. Thucydides uses a word quite frequently, prophasis, the pretext. He always says, well, this is what they said is why they're doing it, but the reality is they're pursuing their interests. You see what I mean? And they don't have our peculiar, I would call them illusions that we've inherited from the Enlightenment, that we can progress towards some higher order of interstate relations in which force can be left behind because we as people are evolving somehow and leaving behind that vestige of our primitive past, right?
Thanks for your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question in terms of American foreign policy. It seems like maybe Thucydides was the Henry Kissinger of the Greek world. What is the place of ideals and norms, ethics in foreign policy? Is it simply political window dressing, or does it play a greater role, especially in the current administration?
Right. No, I don't think it's completely hypocritical window dressing, although it often is. Remember, humans are perfectly capable of being motivated by their interests and their ideals at the same time. Right? Expediency And idealism aren't not necessarily, and principle and expediency aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. We can do things because they benefit us, but because they also serve an ideal. I think it's the sincerity of the attempt to, let's say, bring democracy to certain places, to believe, as the previous administration did, that all people want to be free. Again, Professor Fears addressed this, I think, very well last night. Sure, people want to be free, but they want a lot of other things too. We want mutually exclusive sorts of ideals or goods. We all want to be free and we all want to be equal. Well, then to create equality, we will take some people's freedom away. I mean, that's human nature again. So I think there is sincerity. I don't think it is necessarily, in our part, in the West, I don't think it's necessarily just a naked sort of hypocritical pretext. Now, I think there are instances where it has been pretty hypocritical, and I'm thinking of the run-up in the UN to the Iraq War in the fall and winter of 2002, when President Bush, trying to use international, transnational institutions and diplomacy, went to the Security Council and was blocked there by France. And they weren't blocked by France and Russia and China because they have lofty principles that we should not resort to force. Remember how Russia solved its jihad problem in Chechnya, right? No, because it simply was not in their interest to remove Saddam Hussein at that time. I think that's clear from the historical record. So there are times when you can see the hypocrisy and that the principle, the lofty principle, is used as camouflage for what is naked interest. I think more dangerous than that is that when people believe that the lofty principle is really the only motivation and fail to see those other more grubby sort of motives. All right? Well, thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for that very stimulating and insightful opening remarks this morning. We can have a break now until 10:15. Please come back here at 10:15 for our first panel on the lessons of ancient Greece and Rome for us today. Thank you.